All right, everybody, welcome to episode number 32 of the Comedically Hardheaded podcast. Now, where we left off, Ava and I have just gone through what was possibly the worst summer camp experience ever. When I tell you we went through it with that summer camp 2013. Now, understand, summer camp 2012 was a lot of work, but to an extent, it was still fun. It wasn't just all gloom and doom. But let me tell you, that 2013 summer camp, there was nothing great that happened. Every single day was stressful. And you know what's so funny? When you're a kid, if you've had the luxury to go to a summer camp, it is the greatest thing ever if you end up at a good one. I mean, you're going and doing all these different games, and there's so many things to do, and it's just like you never want it to end. But when you are on the other end of the conversation and you are the staff member in charge of trying to keep that engagement going with kids, it is one of the most draining experiences. And of course, me with my bright ideas, I just said, oh, Ava, you know what? Because we worked so hard last year during Summer Camp 2012, let's make our lives easier for Summer Camp 2013, rather than us staying in our wonderful cozy site that is the size of a 3-bedroom converted apartment and trying to run a full-out summer camp 5 days a week, 8 hours a day for about possibly anywhere up to 45 kids. Rather than trying to do that with a staff of 2 and maybe a volunteer, what if, I just thought of this in the car, one of my bright ideas. What if we go across the street to that big giant community center down the street that has everything that we have imagined that we could ever have in regard to running a community center? That big center across the street that has a pool and a football field and a baseball diamond and a basketball gym and an industrial sized kitchen and a teen room that is the size of our entire center and an art room and everything that you can think of. Plus they have like 20 people on their staff. They are fully funded by the county. I mean, when we drop our kids off over there, we won't have to do anything. Like, we won't have to carry the load. So let's make our lives easier, because you know what? We deserve it. They already don't pay us enough anyway, so why burn ourselves out? And so I've come up with this elaborate idea. Boss lady thought it was a great idea. Ava was totally down for it. Mr. Craig was totally down for it. It was like the way that things had aligned. It was like the angels had opened the clouds and you could just hear them singing. It was like everything was gonna be perfect. And then it came time for that camp. And so I talk about it in that last episode. But just understand that every single day of camp in 2013, we were asking ourselves, what did we get ourselves into? And how much longer do we have to go through this? It reminds me of the time where I went to King's Dominion for the second time. Now, if you're someone who's been following the podcast, I talked about going to King's Dominion my freshman year at Howard. They had this kind of activity where they wanted the freshmen to get to know each other. And so one of the things that we got to do in that very, very first month of school was, they had this big giant trip to King's Dominion, the theme park. And so I remember there was a girl that I kind of liked at the time, and I was really trying to win her over and kind of be in good graces with her. And I remember she had invited me to be in her group, which was perfect. Okay, this is like some Doug episode, like Doug and Patty Mayonnaise at the time. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I figured, because I wasn't really a person that did rides anyway. At the time, I was still kind of scared of heights, and I hadn't really been on too many wild rides. And so I figured, okay, well, she's probably a girly girl, and she's not going to want to get on nothing too crazy. So this works out, and I won't have to look like a punk if I don't want to get on no crazy ride. So sure, yeah, we might do some bumper cars here and there. You might even get on the swinging ship. The swinging ship for me was kind of like, that was about as far as I was going and how high I was going. And so I just knew, okay, this would be cool. Man, I joined that girl's group. That girl had us on every ride that shot upside down, went backwards, went 60 miles an hour, went up 500 feet and dropped. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? And I couldn't look like a punk, so I got on all the rides, terrified. Now, I was trying my best to hide my fear of heights and fast things, but you know what? By the time the day was over, I was good with the rides, and then I never really had a phobia of rides again. But she also had us get on the drop tower. That's just the tower you get on, and it goes up to the top, and it drops to the bottom. So now we fast forward. Now that was like 2006. Now we fast forward to 2013. My friend Jason and a few other folks, we had all got together one time and was like, hey, let's drive down and go to King's Dominion. And this was right before the summer. And so we go to King's Dominion, and I remember they were like, oh, let's get on the drop tower. Now, mind you, I've gotten on all the roller coasters with them, and, I'm good with the roller coasters now, but I was not too pressed to get back on the drop tower, because when I went on it the first time, it was cool, but it's something you just kind of never want to do again once you do it. Some people just love those kind of thrills. I'm good with those kind. That's a little too close to death for me. But anyway, I remember, I'm like, all right, well, I've gotten on everything else anyway. We've gotten on a roller coaster that shoots out the volcano. We've gotten on a roller coaster that goes backwards. We've gotten on that one, it's not even a swing ship. I don't know what it is. It goes up and down and flips and rotates, and there's fire that comes out, and just all kind of crazy stuff. We done been on everything. So I'm like, fine, let me get on this ride too. It's almost time to go home anyway. The day is winding down, and mind you, it's the summer. It's hot outside, and so we get on the drop tower. Get on. They're winding us up, and some of the people in the group kind of scary. They didn't want to get on either, and I was like, see, if y'all would have said something, you, me, and that person, we could have just stayed back and let them go on it, but no, y'all all want to save face. Now here we are, going up a few hundred feet, and so we get up to the very top, and we're sitting, and I'm already like, my eyes are closed already. I'm like, all right, any minute now, we're just gonna go ahead and drop, and I'll be on the ground in less than 10 seconds, so this is almost gonna be over, 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 almost gonna be over. Why are we not dropping yet? Why are we still sitting up here? And so what ends up happening is there's some kind of malfunction with the ride, and we end up stuck at the top of this drop tower. And so now we're sitting up. I don't know how tall this tower is. Just know that when you get to the top, you can see all of Virginia. All right? We're way up there. And so we're just sitting. And see, I was good at first when I had my eyes closed and was waiting for the thing to drop, and, you know, we'd be on the ground in 10 seconds. And now it's been a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 13 minutes, and we're still sitting up there, and now my anxiety's getting bad. And, you know, in the summers, especially like in the mid-Atlantic region and in the South, because it's so hot, you know, it's like 90 degrees every day. A lot of times when it gets really, really hot, it starts to thunder and lightning as we get closer to the evening. And so as I'm sitting on the top of this tower wondering, how are we getting down and when are we getting down? And at this point, there is a crowd gathering at the base of the ride just watching us sit up there. And you can see all of the crew trying to figure out how to get us down and figuring out what's wrong with the wires. As I look off into the distance, I can see the lightning strikes and the lightning, you know, about 100 miles out. And I'm like, oh my God, of all the things to be happening and of all the places to be right now. And I'm just watching my life flash before my eyes because I'm like, okay, the lightning is getting a little closer and we need to get on down from this thing. I am not trying to get struck. And so what ended up happening, the ride never dropped. They had to just crank and roll us down manually. So now we're sitting on the thing and it's going tick, 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 and we're going down. And for me, that was fine because I really didn't want to drop. But at the same time, your anxiety still gets kind of like shaken up because it's taking too long to get down. And now you're watching. What a time. So that's what it felt like. So in the same way where it was that camp and we were like, when is this over? Same experience on that drop tower. Like, when is this over? I think by the time it was all said and done, we were probably up there for about 25, 30 minutes, right? You know, 25, 30 minutes, a few hundred feet in the air while it's 90 plus degrees and there's a storm coming off in the distance and the wind is starting to blow. And then, you know, that theme park had the nerve to give us a little ticket for free rides or, you know, jump the line for the rest of the rides. No, I want to go home. I don't want to get on anything else, okay? I don't even want to get on the carousel with the horses that spin in a circle. I don't want to get on nothing else, all right? Just done. So now we jump back to the end of that summer camp in 2013, and like I said, we were worn out. Ava was tapped out, I was beat down, Mr. Craig was gonna beat down Mr. John if Mr. John tried him one more time, and so we were in that period where there's that 1 week before school starts, and normally this is the week after summer camp has ended, and everybody starts to take their vacations or, you know, just take some personal time just to kind of try and rejuvenate and get some energy before we jump right back into the school year. And so, like I said in the last episode, so I was in my bed, sleeping good. You know how when you get that good sleep and it's almost time to wake up, but it's not time to wake up and the temperature of the blanket is just perfect, like you don't even want to move. I mean, it's that good sleep where you got to pee so bad, but you're not moving out of that spot and you'll just sit there and hold it, all right? By the way, don't do that because we're going to pay for that by the time we're in our 70s and 80s. But understand, like, it was that good sleep. And also, this is that time period in my life where I'm still relatively young. So after coming home from work, I was still trying to go out and go to the bar and go to this club and meet somebody at this and go to that. We're gonna go to Lucky Strike and we're gonna go to Bar Louie and we're gonna go to all these different places and Pinstripe and do all of this stuff and, you know, be out till 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning and then still get up at 8 and function like everything is good. So you're not getting any good sleep in the summer because as a young adult, you still want to enjoy the summer, but you have to still work. So now that camp is over and I have this week to really just do nothing, I'm in that knocked out. So anyway, Daniel calls me, wakes me up out of my sleep at 7 in the morning. And, he's like, hey, man, sorry to bother. And I already got an attitude like, you really just effed up a good pocket I was in with my sleep. But what's up? I didn't say that, but that's what was in my head. Yeah, man, I just want to let you know I got fired. I'm like, oh, shoot. Man. What? And I don't want to be nosy, but I'm like, what happened? And he's like, I don't know. They called and let me know that they're letting me go. I'm like, oh, dang, man. I'm sorry to hear that. And, I'm trying to wrap up the conversation so I can get back to my good pocket of sleep. And, I'll call him later when I wake up. When I wake up. And then he's like, and they let go of everybody at the basement location too. What? Dang, they even got rid of Don? Like, which is so shady. Like, Don was the main one I wanted to go. They got rid of Don? Really? Oh, no. Right? And so I'm over here like, dang, that's crazy. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening at that location, but okay. And then he's like, and I hate to be the one to tell you this, but your position's also on Indeed. Huh? What? What? Yeah, I don't know, man. You might want to call boss lady and see what's going on. And so I get off the phone with him. Now my anxiety is going through the roof, okay? Ain't no going back to sleep. That wonderful sleep pocket that I was in when the temperature of the blanket was perfect, the blanket is cold right now, because wait a minute. I know y'all ain't fired me and ain't told me, and you already have my position up for rehire. Oh, y'all got the game effed up, because you know what? Y'all ain't about to fire me. I quit. Y'all, like I was sitting in it, right? I didn't even know what to think, right? So I couldn't even go back to sleep, and so I called boss lady, and it's going straight to voicemail. I'm like, you know what? And so now I'm plotting like, okay, you see, y'all playing. So now I'm wide awake. I'm up pacing in the room, right? And so I'm talking all this trash, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, wait, I'm fired. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to pay the rent? And oh, look, it's too much going on right now, right? And so I keep blowing up boss lady out and send emails like, hey, what's going on? And there's nothing. And when I look on Indeed, it says that there is a position open at my center for a program director position. And so I'm like, something is funky going on up in here. What is, I don't understand, right? And so I done called and texted Ava, and so we're both a little confused. And so by the time we get to the center, because at this point I don't know why I'm going to work, but I was like, I might as well go and pick up my stuff. Boss lady finally calls me, like just as I'm pulling into the center. She's like, hey, I'm gonna come to the center to come talk to you guys. I'm like, oh, I know what this means, because you know what? When they closed Mr. John's club that one time, or when they let him go, or tried to let him go, but he got grandfathered in by a grant, that's what happened. The CEO and everybody paid him a visit, and then once they let him know that, his center was going to be closing and a few other ones, then they sent out the mass email to everybody and let us know what was going on. I said, okay, okay, so when boss lady gets here, if I see more than one car, we're out of here. That means they done let us go. They done close my little center. All right, of course, we collateral. And so for some reason, Ava and I don't know what was going on, but we just started cleaning up. Like, when I tell you we were like cleaning this center down, I put on the gospel music. We mopping and dusting and organizing the bookshelf. I don't know what we were doing, but we were cleaning up as if we were going to leave this place as neat and as spick and span as possible on our last day. We had no idea what was going on. And I think what was crazy about it was there was so much that was personally happening in our lives at the same time. Like, during that time frame, Ava was dealing with a lot of stuff with her family at the time, and she was wrapping up because she had actually just graduated from her undergraduate program. She had just got her bachelor's, right before we started summer camp. And then her grandmother or one of her grandparents had also died during the summer camp, and so she had that going on. And then for me, the week before summer camp started, I actually got an opportunity to go home to Spanaway because my younger brother Marcus was graduating from high school. Yay, wonderful. But at the same time, that was the first time I started to see that my father's illness at the time was getting worse, because now he's walking around with an oxygen tank, and it took me a really good minute to get used to seeing that. I've already done the episode about my father and his experience having scleroderma, and so you can definitely check out that episode. It's entitled Pops and Unexpected Transition. But at this point in time, the last time I had saw my father before, going to visit for Marcus's graduation, he was still pretty much the guy that I knew. He could still go and do everything. We were still going fishing, and now he has this big old oxygen tank he's moving around with, and then at this point he's gotten the operation and the stents put in his lungs, and I used to have to watch him every 2 days redo his stent medication, and the medication he had was called Remodulin, and mind you, the price range for that is like in the six figures. So our healthcare system is really screwed up in this country, but amen for good insurance that he had. But I would sit there and I would watch him do his medicine, and it would be a process that took like an hour and 10 minutes because you had to be extremely meticulous with how you did everything while you're putting the Remodulin inside the different tubes that are eventually going to go inside the machine that would pump everything into his lungs. There can't be any air bubbles in any of the tubes. Everything has to be sanitized. You can't have any germs anywhere. And he also now is in stage 1 of some element of cancer that he has. So he was also taking chemo pills. And the chemo pills, like, you can't touch with your hands because they're so toxic. But I was watching, like, the palms of his hands kind of change color and get darker. So my dad was just a little broke down at the time. And so it took a minute for me to get used to seeing him in that capacity. It was like, whoa, okay, my world is really rapidly changing here. And so, you're internally taking that in, and it's like, should I give all of this up because this job is already chaotic? As much as I love the kids, I don't enjoy the process of the company. Should I move back home and be closer? I don't know what this means. My father's saying he's fine, don't worry, but he's not looking too good in my opinion. And there was so much going on. And at the same time, that summer was the George Zimmerman verdict. And what was so crazy is that the verdict came out during Ava's graduation party. So Ava's family threw her this big graduation party, and I knew the verdict was coming. They had announced it was going to come, and so I'm already on pins and needles, and this is like, I was really attached to this case. And so, while the party is going and everything is good, I get that notification that George Zimmerman has gotten off for killing Trayvon Martin, and oh God, that's around the time I just really never saw the world the same way again. I already had my questions about a lot of things. I wasn't so whimsical, and I wasn't as, bright-eyed and just, seeing the best in everything. By the time that verdict came out, that was the last time I had any hope with anything in regard to like politics and stuff in this country. And so it was a really, really unique time period. And so now we fast forward, and you mean to tell me y'all about to fire me after all? Y'all gonna wait till after I done finished summer camp to let me go. Why y'all didn't let me go before summer camp? I didn't want to do that in the first place. So Ava and I have turned into the help. We're in there just mopping and cleaning and rearranging stuff and throwing stuff away. And I don't know what was in the air, but Mr. Craig pulled up and got in there. And what's wrong with y'all? Y'all in here cleaning and got this gospel music on here like somebody done died. And I'm over here trying to explain to him, well, we don't know what's going on. Apparently, they let go of everybody at the basement club. Daniel called me, told me he's fired. It looks like my position is on Indeed, and it looks like you guys might be fired too. So we don't know what's happening. Boss lady didn't want to answer none of my calls, and now she just said she wants to meet with us, and she's on the way here. And boss lady never comes to the center unless it's some nonsense, so we don't know. And what was so crazy is Mr. Craig wasn't even pressed. Mr. Craig, again, this is an older black man. He was like, well, y'all ain't got nothing to worry about. Y'all be all right. He's like, Michael, you just passing through anyway. You got other stuff coming for you, and Ava, you just got your bachelor, so what y'all stressed out about? Y'all gonna be all right. He's like, I done lived. I done been through all kind of stuff. This ain't nothing for me, so hey, if they let us all go, so be it. I just hope they do right by the kids. We'll find something else. We'll be all right. And so I'm like, okay, it does sound reassuring, but you still be thinking about your rent and stuff, and I'm thinking like, man, okay. So then finally, boss lady pulls in, and I'm looking, and I don't see an entourage. I don't see the CEO pulling up behind her. I don't see Big Boss Man, the guy who interviewed me for the job, pulling up behind anybody. I don't see any board members, anybody from headquarters. It's just boss lady, So she pulls in, and she does look a little disheveled, like the world has just ended. And I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. And so I was like, maybe we need to turn this gospel up a little bit louder in here. And so, she's like, all right, you guys just have a seat. We're just gonna meet really quick. And so she's like, how are you? I'm like, and in my head, just get to but we don't got time for this. Give us the bad news already. And so she's like, there have been some major changes to what we do. And I'm like, okay, now let's get to the changes. Let's go on and get to what we need to hear. Because I'm kind of at this place where if she says something I don't like, everybody getting cussed out, right? And so she's like, the organization has gone through another restructure. Restructure, man? How much restructuring y'all gonna be doing? Y'all just closed a few centers last year. That's how we ended up with John over here 2 days a week getting on everybody's nerves. And now you talking about restructure this and restructure that. I feel like you didn't finish the last one. It's like y'all trying to build and add on the third floor and you ain't even finished the second floor. Now, this is everything that's circulating in my head. I'm not saying all of this out loud. I'm just kind of sitting there receiving everything that is being said. And so what I was waiting for her to say, which I did not want her to say, I was just mirroring our experience to the basement location. And so I just knew she was getting ready to say, we're letting all of you go because we're going in a new direction and we're going to just go ahead and close your site because it's not really one of our cash crop sites. And just like how they let go of everybody at the basement location, just be ready for some shenanigans. But instead, what she ends up saying is, she's like, I have some good news and a little bit of bad news. And I'm like, well, I don't know how little the bad news is going to be because ain't but 3 of us in here. So who is this going to affect? And so she's like, the good news is, Michael, you are being promoted to a branch director. And I said, oh, okay. Does that come with a raise? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, how am I getting a promotion, but it's not a raise? And so pretty much what she wanted to explain to me is, one, there was always some discrepancies with my title at that point in time when I first joined. And it was because my center was not a chartered location within the company. We were a satellite site of the basement location. So because of that, sometimes on paper it would say that I was a site director, and then sometimes I was being called a program director by other people in the company. So there was a little confusion as to what my actual title was, and this is why Daniel called me and said, your position is on Indeed, because he saw a program director and figured it was me he was talking about. Now, where there was a shift, I got my center chartered in 2013, and so the organization decided, well, we need Michael's title to align with what title is appropriate for a chartered location in regard to somebody who's in charge of it. So my site director position has now turned into branch director. It's exactly the same position, no difference in pay, no difference in anything, just a new name. And that's why there was no raise. I was like, okay, whatever. And so she's like, the other element of good news is you will also be getting a program director. And I'm thinking, oh, actually, this is pretty lit. Because, okay, that means right now there was me as, the branch director. Or before Boss Lady showed up, the setup at our site was I was the site director, and then Ava and Mr. Craig were both program aides. And so it's like, okay, now you have me as the branch director, I'm getting a program director, and then I'll still have Ava and Craig. Great, so now we're going to have 4 staff instead of just, the 3 core people plus whoever shows up. Because, again, like I said in some of the other episodes, I had been fussing about wanting more staff because my location at this point had just as many, if not more, kids than the basement location. But the basement location had like 7 or 8 staff members. And so I'm like, why are we getting the short end of the stick? And so I'm thinking, this is wonderful. Then Boss Lady goes, now to the bad news. You have to let one of your program aides go. And so she's looking at me. I'm looking at her. We're having a blink off because I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to respond to that. I'm like, wait, so you want me to pick which one of the 2 I'm going to get rid of? Because at this point, like, Mr. Craig, I enjoy working with, but I don't want to get rid of Mr. Craig, and I'm certainly not getting rid of Ava. And so I'm over here, like, about to go off because I'm like, y'all better figure out a way for everything to align. Because the way that this new setup was going to be was it was going to be a branch director, a program director, and 1 program aide, not the 2. That's why somebody had to go. And I'm like, so what? And I was like, let me just keep asking questions before I respond. So what does that mean? And so Boss Lady's like, well, the reason I come down here is because I think Ava should apply to be the program director. That way you can keep both. Ava can apply to be the program director because now, again, Ava just got her bachelor's. She's now eligible for some of the bigger positions. And then Mr. Craig, he can still stay as a program aide. And that way, your staff will not be affected by any of the restructure. And you can keep everything you have going. Because, again, with the restructure, it wasn't just limited to my site. Every site had restructures and shifts and changes. And so the staffing patterns at a lot of the sites were changing. And so, Ava's kind of flabbergasted, and I'm like, yep, Ava will do it. I'm speaking for her. Yeah, she'll do it. Yeah, she definitely will be happy because, I wanted her to get the nice raise because she was definitely going to get a raise with this position. And Ava's kind of like, wait a minute, this is a lot. And I'm like, okay, now when does all of this, align? Because apparently all these positions are already posted, and, how soon is that window where she would need to go through the application process and do everything? And Boss Lady's like, she would need to do it in the next 2 days. And I was like, why would she need to do it in the next 2 days? Like, I'm confused. Guess what? Somebody, and I don't know who it was, right? I can't even name names if I wanted to, and it wouldn't matter because I renamed everybody in this podcast anyway. But somebody had already tipped off the majority of the basement location staff about this restructure and about the fact that their positions were all going to be compromised and in danger because they were getting rid of a lot of the full-time positions at the basement location. Like I said, they had like 7 or 8 different staff, and a lot of them were full-time. They had program director, they had the branch director, they had a sports coordinator, they had education director, a team director, like all these different director positions. The company decided they're going to consolidate that down to just a branch director director, program director, and like 2 or 3 other part-time positions. So a lot of those full-time positions were gonna be gone. And so somebody had tipped them off about it, and they already had a heads up about what was gonna be happening at my center, and the fact that there was going to be a program director position opening at my center. So guess who had already applied for the program director position at my center and already had interviews scheduled in 2 days? Mr. Greg, who was the branch director of the basement location, and I'm going to come back to his story because there are some shenanigans around that. And then Mr. John, who, again, this is the staff member that's been coming to my center 2 days a week. And of all people, Don. Now let me give some context as to why I've always had so much smoke for Don, especially the more I sit on things and think about it. Now, when I first got to my center, this is before Ava had joined, right? Before Ava was there was somebody else there named Darlene. Now, Darlene was already kind of in a position where she was ready to transition out of the company anyway, but Darlene had the worst personality, the worst energy, cold, standoffish, rude, overly sarcastic, just she doesn't want to help you with nothing. She just, the energy of Darlene from the Roseanne show, that's why I called her Darlene. She was a mix of Darlene and Daria from that MTV show. You know, you're standing on my neck. Like, that was her. Just no fun. Guess who she was buddy-buddy with? Her and Don were like frick and frack. They got it down together. They were just, you know, they did everything together. And so when Darlene transitioned out and Ava came in, Don already felt some kind of way because Darlene was her buddy-buddy. So now that Darlene is gone, Don doesn't really have anybody to run with. And so as Ava came in and replaced Darlene, Don just always had smoke for her, even to the point where she was the main person campaigning to get Ava fired. So that time we were in that meeting and she was like, well, I think Michael should have somebody at his staff who can be there 5 days a week, because at this point, with Ava only being there 3 days a week, it affects what happens at our location because we have to keep sending somebody to his location on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He needs somebody there that's full time. Like, that was literally the conversation, and they did that crap right in front of everybody with Ava sitting right there, and Ava was brand new. And the part that just pissed me off about it was Ava was upfront about her schedule because, again, she was a student in college, and so she was only available 3 days a week because on the other 2 days she was doing her classes, and she had told us that from the jump. I'm not going to rehash and revisit that whole setup because there was another person that was supposed to be hired at the same time as Ava, and she would fill in for those days when, you know, Ava wasn't available, and then on the opposite days she'd fill in at the basement location. But, you know, she was the main person campaigning for Ava to get fired. And then we talked about what happened at the big fundraiser dinner where she pretty much connived her way into setting up my kids to pretty much work as the servants at this big, you know, multi-million-dollar fundraiser while she set it up for her kids to get the grand royal red carpet treatment. So there was that happened. And then here's the thing that I really sat with. I just personally felt that she didn't like black people, and there was no way to hide it. Now, she was Salvadorian, but she always said certain things that I just always noticed. Like, one, she didn't like my kids to begin with. Like, my kids, if it was anything, she didn't like our kids doing stuff together. So anytime she had to do something with my site, she had an attitude. Anytime she had to come to my center, and fortunately that was only 2 times, she treated my kids as if these were just, you know, the troublesome, out of control kids, and they need some serious discipline. So she's coming in there yelling and threatening the kids with this, and this person's gonna go home, and all kind of crazy stuff. And she was convinced that the kids at my center all had behavior problems. And here's the thing, kids are kids, right? Kids have energy. Kids are gonna bounce off the walls. Like I said, there's not really a such thing as a bad kid. Kids just need things to do. And yes, I had some kids who needed some things to do, but you know what? At this point in time, I was used to my kids who needed something to do, and I had them in the right positions where I needed them to be. She never took the time to ever get to understand or get to know my kids in the same way that I would have for any other center whenever I had to substitute or fill in. And so she always had smoke for my kids. But the icing on the cake was the day that I found out through Daniel, which I had to look at him sideways too, because I was like, oh, so y'all just all sat around and let this happen. One of these times, she was on a field trip. Daniel's driving the bus. These are the basement location kids. And guess who's in the back of the bus with their kids telling race jokes? Right? Now, mind you, these are all kids, and this is the basement location kids, but these kids are all Salvadorian and Mexican and Nicaraguan and everything. And who is leading the charge? Don. Race jokes. I mean, N-word, everything. I said, oh, really? Oh, okay. Now, mind you, I had just found that out maybe a week or two before the restructure. So I was already, at this point, I was telling boss lady, look, you need to do something about that because that ain't happening. So when I saw that her name was on the list to come work at my center, oh, hell no, you ain't coming over here. You really don't need to work with anybody's kids because the flaws that exist within society, especially when we talk about the conversations of race, how dare you as a person who works with youth go and endorse and enforce those same stereotypes and generalizations that keep society in a space where we're always going to be divided, and you as an adult are supposed to be the example, and you over here stirring the pot. And so I was like, oh, hell no. But you know what? It gets so good because let me tell you how karma works. Guess who has to interview all of the applicants? It's my center. I get to pick and choose who's going to work there. And so I was just like, oh, this is going to be a great week. Sure, go ahead and apply. So listen, I had convinced Ava, Ava, you are more than qualified to compete for this position. And I think there were maybe 7 or 8 people who had applied for the position in addition to the folks from the basement location. And so with the interview process, it was going to be myself, it was going to be boss lady, and it was going to be one additional staff member from headquarters that would sit on the panel. And then the 3 of us would decide amongst ourselves who would be, the final candidate that would get this position at my location and be the program director. Now, I'm not even going to lie, in my head, I wasn't budging for nobody else. Nobody was getting it but Ava. I'm sorry. It's just like for me, Ava had already been there since I had been there, and she'd actually been there before I got there because she grew up in the neighborhood. She knew the kids. She knew everything that worked with all the kids. She knew the triggers, what worked with some kids, what didn't, and she and I had struggled together for 2 years, and nobody would be able to do the kind of work that we did in the capacity that we did it. So she had favor and grace with me, and that's why I was telling her, you apply, and listen, I'm going to be fair, right? I'm not going to sit here and just let you walk in the door if you give I'm lying. She was going to still get the position, but either way, just understand, I was letting her know, I got your back. You are more than qualified because she was nervous. She didn't think she could do the work. And I was like, Ava, look at everything that we have been able to do at this center, because this center at this point is on the up. Right? When we got in there, it was a lot of nonsense. The center needed a renovation. The kids was off the chain. Nobody knew who we were. It was all this crazy stuff, but slowly but surely, we were making these small strides each and every day. And I'm like, there's no other person that I would want in regard to continuing in this journey with. I would want it to be you. And so, I convinced her, just apply, because she was really, really nervous. She didn't think she could do the work because she saw how much stuff I had to do. And I'm like, we in this together. We gonna be all right. And so we get to the interview, right? And so the very first interview that I saw, it was the interview with John. He actually gives a good interview. That's the one thing. As much as John gets on my nerves, he gave an excellent interview. You really get to see just how his mind works, but I still knew John was not going to be the right fit because, again, like I said, John is super, super smart on paper. Like I said, he's probably somebody that can probably recite the first 300 numbers of pi, right? He's probably somebody that could figure out the math to shoot one of them shuttles into space and not crash. He's that kind of smart. But socially, and when it comes to interacting with kids, he drops the ball. He doesn't want to do anything physical. When it's hot outside, he can't go outside because too much sun is going to burn him. And he used to drive me crazy because he spent all day telling us he was Cherokee, but now he can't be out in the sun. And so, it was just too many things in regard to him, right? And then the kids just didn't connect with him the same way because he always had a wall up. He was cool. He and I had great conversations before the kids got there, especially when he and I would connect on music because we liked a lot of the same thing. And he was also a musician and could play guitar. But I knew he would not be the one. And then there were some people that had interviewed from some of the other locations, and I already knew none of them are going to work because they're all just looking for temporary job security while they go and find something better. And I just already knew that person's not going to work, that person's not going to work. And some people also just gave terrible interviews. And then we got to Greg. When I tell you there was so much shady stuff going on, like I said, Greg was the branch director of the basement location. Within the restructure, they also restructured a lot of the positions from some of the top leadership. So Boss Lady was a regional director. She was the regional director for all the Fairfax County sites. And so that was going to be my site, the basement location. They had closed down the Herndon location, and then any other location that would open in Fairfax, she'd be the regional director of. And we had this for all of the regions. So there was a DC regional director. There was a director for some of the places in Maryland, some of the other places in Virginia. And so every region had a director. The regional director positions they were getting rid of and consolidating into the branch director positions of the largest centers within the respective regions. So because the basement location was the largest center in our region, her position was being consolidated into the branch director position for the basement location. This now meant that Boss Lady and Greg were going to audition or interview and apply for the same position. But understand, Boss Lady was Greg's boss, right? And the person who would now become the branch director of, again, the largest location within the region, they would still do the regional work, but they're just now the branch director of the largest center as well. So it was still going to be a workload. There was going to be a raise included, but Greg already knew that the door was going to close on him. So he had already interviewed for the branch director position for the site that he already was the branch director for. A lot of people had to reapply for the same positions, but he knew that he wasn't going to get it because he was competing against Boss Lady, and Boss Lady had favor, so he already didn't get that position. So then he was coming and he was going to interview for mine. And so as he was coming, and I felt so bad, as he was coming to do our interview, he pulled out of the interview once he realized Ava was interviewing, because he knew, he was like, I can't do it. Like, as much as I would like this, I understand what it is that Ava is to those kids at that site, and I understand the working relationship she and Michael have, and it wouldn't be fair for me to just intrude and try to step in there knowing I don't want to be there. It's just me trying to make sure I still have a job. And so he pulled out, and I was like, dang, man, that's real commendable. But I felt so bad. Like, it was so shady how they did him. So he ended up getting pushed out of the company. Now, he actually did end up coming back years later, but he's better than me. I wouldn't have came back. F all of y'all. So we get through all these interviews, and so at this point, everybody has interviewed except Ava and except Don, and I'm not crazy over anybody. There was one person who had an okay interview, but I was like, I don't see them working out at this location. They have bigger aspirations, and they've said that they want to be at a bigger site, so why would they come to the smallest site? That means they're just setting themselves up to go to the big one, which I understand. It's career growth. People want to grow. But right now I need somebody who's down in the trenches with me and ready to be down in the trenches while we, let our site become better and better. And so I remember talking to the other panelists, and the other panelist was like, well, Michael, like, what do you think? Who are you, like, really leaning towards? And I was like, oh, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, Ava and I have a well-oiled machine. I want to keep it going, right? And I think she's dealt with a lot of nonsense that, if anything, let her get a raise and get this position. She's going to do great with it. Now she's done with classes, so now she's available 5 days a week, and we can really, kick things into the next gear. And so the next interview is Ava. And the thing was, I could not be biased. I still had to be impartial and still, because there's like a point scale and everything with the interview. So it's not like I just picked her and was like, ooh, she's in it. Oh, no, it was still a whole process, and you still have protocol because, again, when you're talking about equal opportunity employment, you just can't pick your favorites. There's a process. And so she comes in. I was so proud of her. She just had this very professional interview. She had her answers together. And the best part is I didn't even get a chance to really work with her or, practice the interview. Like, she did it on her own with her boyfriend, and they had that figured out. And so when she came in, it was like an Ava I didn't even know. I was like, I didn't even know you had that in you. Like, she killed the interview. Like, you could tell that, this is the role for her, and she's in the right place at the right time. And so, she nails her interview. And so by then, I'm convinced it's Ava. So good. I'm already mapping out how we going to jump into the school year. But we still have one more interview left to do. Here comes Don. Now, I'm trying to hold it together because my eyes are one step from rolling. Like, you got some nerve. You don't even like my kids. And the nerve of you to apply here. And I know she was not going to stay long term had she got the position. It was just something that just, keep the lights on until you found something better. And so the thing that I didn't like is I knew that for anybody who was reapplying for, the position anybody who was applying for the position at my center that came from the basement location, if they didn't get that position, they didn't have a job. That was the only thing I didn't like. I don't like having to send people off into wherever they go. But for Don, so anyway, Dawn comes in, does her interview, and she comes in there like she already has a position, right? Comes in there cocky, because I will say she has a lot of years over Ava in this field. So she came in there cocky. She knew who the other panelist was outside of Boss Lady, but she kept saying all the wrong things. And so I remember one of the questions that was asked was like, well, what is it that you can like bring to enhance the experience at this location? And the first thing she said, well, I know Michael has problems with the behavior of the kids there. I'm like, up, strike two. You done already said too much. I don't like you. You're not gonna come after my kids in the first question, right? And so long story short, she gives this really crappy interview, and I just was like, bye, Dawn, bye. So yes, it was goodbye to Dawn. And of course, Ava gets a position. Dawn is out of there. I hope she gets everything she wants for Christmas, but hey, sorry. I wish you well. Now, with that being said, this did not turn into a happily ever after, everything is all good now, let's just go ahead and party and get on the go-go train. It was not quite that yet. As a matter of fact, for maybe the next year, it was about to be a lot of chaos because now there is a lot of tension. There's been 2 restructures in less than 2 years. A lot of people have been let go. Some people have gotten into new positions. And even with Daniel, because Daniel had been pushed out of his position, he had to reapply for it. And he got it. But now the difference is with him at the basement location, when he was the program director during the old structure, his boss was Greg, and then Greg's boss was Boss Lady, right? And so Daniel and Greg got along just fine. But now it's going to be Daniel and Boss Lady working directly together at the basement location, right? And so just understand, for the next year, there was all kind of mess and chaos and drama. And to add to that, there was also a lot of hard feelings in this space because remember, when we had the first restructure that I talked about in another episode, when they closed John's location, Boss Lady made sure that John was going to be okay, and she set it up where there was a grant that would cover his salary, and then he ended up getting a position that made him a regional education director. He had just applied for the program director position at my center just because he wanted to more so be in one location rather than bounce everywhere. Plus, he and Daniel didn't really get along like that anyway. But understand, everybody's kind of looking like, wow, so when John's position was pretty much terminated, you came out with a whole grant to make sure that he was good to go, but when everybody else was on the chopping block, whether it would have been possibly Ava or possibly Craig or Daniel or Greg or Don or everybody else, there were no grants for none of them. It was just like, we'll see the rest of y'all later. So just understand, the tension was a little, it was there. But enough on the adults and their problems. Let's actually talk about the kids. So it is about 2 or 3 days before the school year starts, and we are at the end of summer camp cookout. Now, this was something that they would throw every year at the end of summer camp for all the different sites in the different regions. And so this would be games and food and certificates being given out, and just a great way for everybody to connect, and we'll see you later once the school year starts kind of thing. And plus, there would also be some kids who don't come back and they only come for the summer, so you don't see them during the school year because they return to their respective states that they live in. And so, it's just a great hurrah. Now, the thing is, Boss Lady always had a way to have some kind of speech that was always out of pocket, and half the time she didn't mean any harm. It's just things didn't come out the way they should come out. Here was an example. And so she gets on the mic, and mind you, everybody's ready to go. We played games, we done been out there all day. It's time to go. It's getting hot. And so she's like, this summer was the best summer we've ever had. And so the kids are all jumping, yeah. Now, mind you, all the staff, we're like, if y'all only knew. And then she goes, and this summer we made love. And so there's like an awkward silence. And then the kids start giggling. And I'm looking like, what is she? And Mr. Craig is like, somebody get the mic from her. And I'm like, Boss Lady, no. What? We didn't make love? No, we didn't make love. We made love. No, not wrong context, Boss Lady. What she was trying to say was like, summer was a great time and there was camaraderie and it was a loving environment. But again, Boss Lady is from South Korea, and so sometimes things don't translate the same way. And so she was adamant about us all making love during the summer, and she would not let it go. And I kept telling her, no, we didn't make love. So the kids are laughing, and I was like, if we didn't make love, what did we do? And I was like, we just had a good time. Okay, we had a good time. Did you all have a great time? Yes, we'll take it. Thank you. Coming into this school year, there was one thing that Ava and I now realized. We had been there long enough for Peewee to now be old enough to come to the center. If you remember, I talked about there was a family of 5. Now, at this point in time, only 2 of the children were old enough to come. That was RJ and that was LaShawn. RJ at this point is in about 7th grade. LaShawn is in 5th. And now we have Peewee. All right? Now, Peewee was the kid that we met when he was 3, and he cussed like a sailor, still wore a pull-up. He just always had some mess going on, and he always found his way to the center when he wasn't supposed to be in there because he wasn't old enough. And now he was old enough. And Ava and I had this ongoing pact where it was like, by the time Peewee is old enough to start this program, let's make sure we have new jobs. And you know what? Didn't quite happen. So now here we are coming into the 2013-2014 school year, and Peewee is in kindergarten. And I remember him getting off the bus. Because one thing I always did, we would always greet the kids when the bus would pull up. And it would be so funny because you'd always hear the bus coming. Like, because the bus was just loud. Like, they'd be way down the street and you just hear, and just the bus engine, and no, and screaming. And God bless the bus driver. They went through about 20 bus drivers in the 11 years that I was there. Like, man. And so I watched that bus pull up, and I'm watching all the kids, get off. Hey, JJ, what's up? What up, Monica? What up, Ashley? What up, Chase? Saying hi to all the kids and everything, and hey, good to see you. And then out of nowhere, one of them last kids to get off the bus. And it was almost like Peewee knew. He was like, I'm about to take y'all through it all year. Oh, we're going to have us a time. So Peewee comes off the bus smiling. Peewee already done got a letter sent home on the first day from school. I'm like, you know what, go inside, Peewee. Just go on inside, right? Peewee done came off that bus. He got mulch in his hair. He done spilled some kind of juice on the shirt. The backpack is busted wide open. One shoe is missing half of the lace. I was like, this boy here. But you know what's funny? As much as Peewee used to drive us crazy back then, he grew up to be one of my favorites. And I really feel like that's the pattern with a lot of kids you work with. The ones that take you through it. The way they become your favorites over time, because there's just this kind of love you have for their nonsense, and then eventually when you get to see them grow up and calm down and come into their own, it's just a great thing. But I mean, Peewee would take us through it, and I mean, he was consistent because he was never sick. When I tell you he was there every day, perfect attendance. If there was a field trip that he could go on, his mom made sure he was signed up. It was like the mom was purposely just sending him to us, and it was like, goodness. So he was just there every day, to the point where one time his whole family was sick. Everybody had the flu. Guess who didn't have it? He's coming. I'm fine. I'm not sick. We're playing games today? Yeah, we're gonna do games after homework. I don't have any homework. Okay, but I'm gonna have some stuff for you to do. What if I don't want to do it? Well, you gonna do it? Look, we ain't doing this today. You just got off the bus. I will turn you right back around. You go back home with your sick family. All right? My mom said I can't be at the house because she doesn't want you getting the germs. Okay, so that means we're gonna have a great day, right? You're not gonna do anything to get sent home early like we did last week, right? Right. Okay, good. And so when I tell you, Peewee just took us through it all year. And at the same time, there was this lovely lady, Miss Nikki, that worked at headquarters. And for some reason, she loved our center. She just fell in love with the kids. She came by one day just to kind of visit, and I told her about our center and how things worked. And then she got hooked and she wanted to volunteer. I was like, yeah, come anytime you want to come, right? Because we never had people from headquarters ever come to visit us. And so she started making it a bi-weekly thing where she would come and do art. And I remember every time she came and did art. And the thing was, she was very, very patient, right? Just this warm spirit, this, black woman, probably about, I'm gonna say maybe 30 years old, AKA just warm presence, right? Just easygoing, has a very nurturing aspect about her. And so, she would come and she'd have a new arts and crafts project for the little kids every time she came. And it would be so funny because Peewee was still learning how to share, right? When you're at a center and you gotta share resources and stuff, well, if we're doing something like paper mache pinatas or something like that, we're gonna have to share the paste. You put, rather than giving everybody their own individual little bowl with some paste in it, we probably got about 4 big giant bowls of paste in the middle of the table, and the 12 kids are taking their turns sharing it. But Peewee would be somebody who would want his own bowl, right? So now he's fighting, and I'm like, Peewee, you gotta share it. No, this was mine. No, you said I had it first. I get it, but we're using this together because we don't have no, this is mine. I'm not sharing. Here, Peewee, come with me. I got something I want you to help me with. And so then Peewee would come with me, and now he's at my desk, and I'm like, you know what, here, I need you to help me staple these papers. You just find the most simple thing, just something to keep him occupied. And so finally, I got Peewee in a pocket where he's good. We're stapling papers, right? Now, the other thing is, the little kids love attention from the staff. And when they see one kid getting too much attention, they want some too. So now, understand, Chase has a younger brother, Lance. If you remember, Chase is the kid who, he lives in his own world. Everything is like a Power Ranger game to him. He's a ninja fighter and all that. His little brother Lance, who I think is now in first grade, now he comes because he wants to do it too. I want to staple too. And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. We'll do it this way. All right, so Peewee, you're going to do one staple, and then Lance, you'll do a staple, and we'll go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so far, things are almost going okay. Peewee's starting to get attitude because he's like, this is me and Mr. Michael time. What are you doing here, Lance? You effing this up for me, right? And next thing you know, now here comes Willow, all right? That's Clarissa's little sister, the one that used to sneak in when she wasn't supposed to be in here, and, they would do her hair. Now she's also old enough to come. And I want a staple too. That's not fair. I want a staple too. Okay, well, you come on a staple too. All right, so you gonna do a staple, you do a staple, you do a staple. And before you know it, I got about 6 staplers at my table now, right? And now this is where we get into the problem, because now Peewee is like, y'all done effed up my system here because it was just me and Mr. Michael, and then all of y'all came. Now Peewee got an attitude. And so what Peewee would do is, he would just take his sweet time to staple his paper. He's gonna align the papers up super slow, right? And then he's gonna hold the stapler and look at it and twist the stapler around and lift it in the air and put it back down, and then finally put the paper in and then pretend he's getting ready to staple, and then like, psych. And then all the other kids, you have to share. You have to share. And I'm like, guys, you guys sure y'all don't want to go back to Miss Nikki and do the whatever the things are? Next thing you know, Ava comes in the room, and at this point, it's me with 6 children that are all first grade and down who are all fighting to be the stapler helper. And it's getting to the point where Peewee's annoyed because, again, it was just supposed to be me and him. The rest of them was supposed to be making the piñatas. Now Peewee's ready to hit everybody in the face with the stapler. So Ava comes, she grabs Peewee. Hey, come on, you're going to help me in the kitchen and do snack. And so now she's telling Peewee he's going to be the kitchen guardian. He's going to stand by the door and make sure nobody comes in the kitchen while Miss Ava's in the kitchen setting up the snack. Okay, great. And now I'm slowly dismissing all of the little ones who were helping me with the stapler back to the arts and crafts in the other room with Miss Nikki, because that's where y'all are supposed to be in the first place. That's the other thing. Little kids have short attention spans. They just jump from one thing to the next. And so I'm sending all of them out. You guys did so good with the staples. Now I want to see how good you can make those piñatas. Who's gonna make the best piñata? Just everything you can do to keep these kids from just acting crazy. Mind you, I still got teenagers in the lab. They playing all the ratchet music on the computers and everything. It's a lot going on. Now I hear a commotion because Peewee done kicked one of the kids who walked too close to the kitchen, right? And so that kid's crying, and so Ava's trying to take care of that, and I'm like, you know what? Next thing you know, Mr. Craig comes and he grabs Peewee. He's like, you come on with me, because Mr. Craig is taking a group outside anyway, so he's gonna have Peewee hold the giant sack that has all the different balls and the games that the kids are gonna play outside. You come on and carry this. We're gonna see how strong you are. And like literally, Peewee would have a rotation with all of us every day. It was just like we were passing him to the next person. Like you get your Peewee time, and then you tap out and pass it to somebody else. Like Peewee was wearing us out. And it didn't help. Peewee knew every out-of-pocket song in the world because, again, remember, he had an older brother, RJ, who's now in 7th grade. And this is the era of Chief Keef and Little Reese and all them, And so, Peewee knew every song about shoot 'em up, kill 'em up, stab 'em up, and gut 'em up. I'm like, what kind of kindergarten is like... Woo! When it came to like free time, when the kids could play music and stuff on the computers, we just already knew, like, listen, at this point, we had to start putting the filters on the computers because Peewee was finding stuff I ain't never heard before. I'm like, Lord, these are some intense songs y'all be listening to. No wonder y'all be pissed off every day. Man, I'm like, when I was in kindergarten, we were listening to happy stuff, like happy songs and stuff. Like, Lord, okay? Goodness. And what's so funny is the chaos that would ensue and all of the nonsense that would drive us up a wall. It wasn't just limited to Peewee. Again, we had all kind of personalities at the center. There was a little girl, Angel. And man, when I tell you Angel was like the parallel of Peewee. Just, she was a girl. Same age, just as chaotic. And she was the younger sister of Antoine and Tiff. Now, I've talked about those two before. Antoine was the kid who was always just mad all the time. He was mad every day. And him and JJ used to fight all the time. JJ is the kid where I accidentally knocked his tooth out when we were playing flag football. And he's the kid that took the shrimp out of my hand, right? And so Antoine just was always mad, right? And then it was Tiff, who was the oldest sister. And she was always in everybody's business, just nosy. Like, you couldn't have no secrets around her because she was gonna find out and tell everybody. Like, Tiff is just the instigator in the mix of everything. Think of when parents are having a conversation and they always tell the kids to leave the room because grown folks are talking. Tiff would be the kind of child that would sit by the stairs and keep listening, right? And then go to recess and tell her friends everything that the parents said about each other, and then it gets back to the parents, and now the parents fight in the church, right? That's Tiff. And so it was funny because when Tiff was really little too, for some reason, she used to just pull her braids out. Like, her mom would, get her to get the micro braids and stuff done. And as the braids were getting older and everything, because sometimes if you do them too tight, sometimes they can kind of pull out some of your hair follicles and stuff. And so she just keep yanking and pulling on these braids. And next thing you know, Mr. Michael, huh? I took out one of my braids. Oh, does that hurt? Because mind you, she's taking out the braid with the actual hair that was growing out of her scalp. Now there's a patch missing, right? And then, maybe 2 weeks later, she done ripped out 2 or 3 more. And so all these patches, I'm like, Tiff, you're going to be bald-headed by the time you get to middle school, and boys are not nice, and girls can be 10 times worse in middle school. I'm going to need you to stop, okay? And so, anyway, but that family in general, that was a family that Ava had to pack with their mom, where it was kind of like when one of them got in trouble, all of them just went home because they were always doing too much. And so Angel had finally joined. Angel was a character. Let me tell you how we met Angel, all right? Angel at one point actually went to the big giant community center across the street where we had Summer Camp 2013 that I told you was absolutely terrible. They kicked her out of that center, and I can't remember exactly what it was she did. I just remember we were having snack, and her mom came inside with a rush. And mind you, her mom was pregnant, because mind you, there's 4 of them. There was another one on the way. I'm like, Lord, this family here. Whoo! The mama came in on a rush, sweating, about 5 or 6 months pregnant. Mr. Michael, please, please take her. I'm like, what do you mean take her? She kicked out the camp. She must come to you. Oh Lord, no, I can't take any more. But all right, I'll take her. And she just look. Angel already had a look like, I just want you to know, for the next few years, I'm gonna take you there, and there's nothing you can do about it. So just prepare. Fasten your seatbelt. Like that's literally the move. Like Angel was off the chain, and for some reason, the mama just seemed like she could not manage the children. Like they used to run all over her, and Angel was like a daredevil. She wasn't afraid of anything, and she just played with a different deck of cards. The mom one time came to us and was just like, I don't know what to do with her. She don't listen. I tell her to do. She disrespect me. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And so one time, we had this conversation. And then Ava was standing outside, and they had this big old van. They used to drive in this van and everything. And Angel didn't want to go home. Like, we had just kind of closed for the day, or we were about to close for the day, but Angel had got picked up a little early because the mom was going to take them to church. Angel did not want to go to church at all. And so while we're standing outside, the mom is, pulling off in the van. Angel opened the van while it was in motion and jumped out and ran back into the center. And the mom, Mr. Michael, you see what I'm talking about? I was like, oh my God. Like, this family here. And so Angel was off the chain. She used to take us through it. I will never forget. Same time, Miss Nikki was doing arts and crafts. Angel was mad about something, took that whole box of crayons and threw it across the room. And then again, it goes back to that same routine we had. All right, yo family, pack it up. We'll see y'all tomorrow. That was a family there. And she was a fighter too. That's what made it funny. She wasn't scared of nothing. Wasn't scared of nobody. Nobody could press or move her. Like, she'd be the kind of kid to walk up and punch Mike Tyson in the face, right? And it was so funny because she was so cute. She was tiny. She was a kindergartner. She had the 2 front teeth missing. She had like the really, really long hair. This little brown skinned girl. Adorable. But Lord, that girl's off the chain. And listen, I know Monica was a fighter. I always talk about Monica and what she had going, but see, Monica's situation was Monica was just raised to be real tough, and so that was just her nature. With Angel, I don't know what the issue was, because the mom did not raise the 4 of them to be violent or nothing like that. She didn't tolerate them doing all that fighting and everything, but the siblings in that family just all had their own personalities, and I think because she was the baby at the time and the new baby was on the way, she just used to lash out. Everybody was gonna catch it. And then her and Willow were best friends. Willow again was the little sister of Clarissa and Ashley, and so her and Willow would be inseparable, and everything would be well until they got to fighting, and then we'd have to pull her off of Willow. It was a time. So one of my favorite things to do was we always had this big giant cooking competition between the boys and the girls at the club. And so we had these 2 mentoring groups at the center. There was one for the girls called the ladies group and one for the boys called the gentlemen's group. And this was for boys that were going to be ages 8 to 13 and the same for the girls, ages 8 to 13. And in this group, we do a whole bunch of mentoring things, and this is where they would hear about, what to expect as they get older, how to really set and plan goals, how to really deal with conflict and all the different things that kids go through when they're in that age range, right? And so one of the treats would always be that we would always have a day where one of the groups would cook dinner for the entire center, right? And it was really cool because one thing that I've always said, even though we had a smaller center, we always made sure that everything we did was grand. We never wanted the kids to feel like just because they go to a smaller center that doesn't have the gyms and the fields and the pools and all the other stuff, that doesn't mean that they can't do things that make a positive impact and they can't do things that aren't grand. And so every time we planned any kind of event, it was always going to be top tier. And so whenever we would have these cooking competitions, because how it would go is one of the groups, either the ladies group or the gentlemen's group, they would cook for the entire club and serve dinner. And so it would be like we would pretty much turn the entire center into a restaurant. And so when it was the boys' turn, like what I would always do with the boys we'd keep meeting, we'd map out what our menu was going to be, and then I'd select one or two boys who would make the invitations, and they'd pass these invitations out to everybody who was in the center, who's not in the group, but will be there for the dinner, right? So they'd have the invitations, they would have the menu on there. People's invitations would have what specific time they were supposed to show up. I'd have people that were going to be the host. I'd always have two kids that were going to be the host. One that was the host inside, and one that was the host outside, and I'd give them walkie-talkies just like the real restaurant, because it kind of looked like we were the nightclub when it was time for the dinner. Because all the kids would be outside lined up waiting to get in, and you got the kid with the walkie-talkie bringing them in by groups. And so I'd have kids that were going to be the servers, and they'd be passing the plates out. I'd have 2 or 3 of the older kids with me that would be helping with the majority of the food. I'd have a kid that would set the playlist, because there's going to be music playing while everybody's eating, because I'm bougie. I want to be all nice and regal, so let's put on some nice collective easy listening music at the restaurant. This is a regal restaurant. This ain't no hole in the wall. This is top tier up in here, right? I'm using my good cooking supplies for this stuff, right? And so they'd have the music. You'd have 2 or 3 who would do the decorations, and we would go and literally revamp the entire main room to make it look fancy. So the tables would have tablecloths and all this kind of stuff. And again, the girls would do exactly the same thing when it was their turn. And so every time we'd have this dinner, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now you're hanging lights across the ceiling and everything, and turning off the big lights and letting the Christmas lights hang and light up the room. And it was a really good time. And you start getting lasers, and it just got bigger and bigger. The kids would be in like dress codes for whatever group they were in. So if it was the boys doing a dinner, maybe they all agreed to wear black and blue that day. Or if it was the girls, maybe they all agreed to wear red and white or something like that. And it just was a really, really fun activity. But what was so funny, Ava and I were in such competition because when it first started, it was just kind of something, real quick. You make some little food, some hot dogs and stuff, and you guys go enjoy, right? And then it started to get a little bit more intense. One of those years, the gentleman's group was doing burgers and fries. Pretty simple, right? But, they had all the different toppings the kids could choose from, like bacon and lettuce and tomato and cheese and onion and all that other stuff like that. And Ava kept making me so mad because she kept coming in the kitchen and eating the bacon. I'm like, Ava, man, stop eating the kids' bacon. I bought just enough for every kid to get 1 or 2 strips. We ain't got it for you to keep. We're not here to feed your appetite. Can you chill? And, we're still in this era where we didn't have a company card, and Boss Lady's still just giving us those little Costco cards with $150 on it for supplies for the whole month, right? So sometimes we're paying for stuff out of pocket to try to mix in because there's just not enough on the Costco card. And she kept eating my bacon. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get y'all back. Because look, some of the kids are like, I didn't get bacon on my sandwich. And I'm like, I wonder why. And Ava over there full. So that next time it was up for the gentleman to do a dinner, I went all out. They had like the roasted chicken, and we had yams, and I had made this cornbread, and they had string beans, and they had I chopped up the potatoes and, cooked it in the skillet with the oil and the butter and the seasonings and everything. And they had it was like a Thanksgiving spread. Like I went all out just because I was like, yeah, you're not about to sabotage no more of our dinners. And so, that dinner was, everything was smelling good. Even the ladies from the real office next door were peeping in there. Ooh, smells nice. I'm like, and y'all ain't getting none. But, man, and so it was so funny because after the boys had just done this grand dinner, like I said, it was roasted. We didn't even have enough for seconds. Everybody ate up everything. There was nothing left, all right? And so after the boys had done their dinner, it was time for the girls to do theirs. And I was so petty because I guess Ava just was tired that month, so she ain't go all out like I did. And so I remember I came in the kitchen while they were cooking. I'm like, oh, chicken nuggets, huh? Cool. Like, I was such a troll. We used to have just such competition. It used to be so much fun. And speaking of the rental office, like I said before, there was Miss Linden, who was the white lady that helped us with our renovation, where pretty much it helped our center go from looking like a hole in the wall to looking a lot more presentable, because we got new furniture, new appliances, TVs mounted on the wall. We even the floor got changed, right? So she went all out for us. And then there was also Miss Jenny, who was the lady that ran the show, this older black woman. And it was so funny because every day Miss Jenny was always gonna come over looking for snacks. Like, Miss Jenny was hungry all the time. And it would be so funny because we always knew what she was going to ask for when she came in, because she kind of had this slow walk that had a bounce to it, right? And so she would come in, y'all ain't got no chips? Woo, because I'm hungry. I am hungry. Woo, y'all ain't got no snacks? what y'all got in here today? It used to be so funny because I used to be like, man, Miss Jenny, we got snacks, but we really ain't got a lot. But yeah, okay. But we give her something anyway because she was always really nice to us. And again, she was always great to work with when we did Toys for Tots and everything. And so, and even with the dinners, I was talking trash earlier, but a lot of times we'd save a plate for them if they were still there. But man, it was so funny. Miss Jenny always, y'all ain't got no chips? Man, I am starving. Man, and then there was the time I had this jacked up haircut and still had to go to work. And so at the time, I really, really liked the hairstyle that Usher had during his Looking for Myself era. If you remember, it was kind of like a fade, but a mohawk, but it just had a whole lot going on with it, but it looked really, really cool. And so I started getting the same kind of haircut because by then I finally started going to a barbershop again because I had been cutting my own hair for about 2 years just because I had taught myself. And we used to even have some days where we would cut the boys' hair at the center as a part of the program. They could get a free haircut. So I would cut hair. Ava's boyfriend would come and help cut hair as well. And so, I had really liked the style. So I started going to the barber shop, and my barber had the same name as me, right? And so he would hook this style up every week. And I was killing it too, because this is back when I was like 20 pounds lighter. So my face was all still chiseled and my jawline was still super defined. You see my cheekbone, like you couldn't tell me I wasn't killing it back then, right? Well, I thought I was. I look at those pictures now, I'm like, Lord, you used to be skinny, Lord. What were you eating? But anyway, so I was going in for just a regular touch-up, go ahead and enhance what I already got because I'm killing it. I'm about to go out this weekend. And, man, I don't know what the barber did. It's like he cut too much off the top half of the side somehow and then cut too far into the top. And so now the top part was lopsided and he couldn't fade it because he cut too far up to the top. And then the back was all jacked up. And I was like, dang, man. And so I was trying to figure out, well, maybe I can manipulate it with, just some hair grease and stuff and play around and brush it and maybe train it to look right. Nothing. So then I went to another barber like the next day, to try to get them to try to clean it up some. And then they just started cutting more off the top. Cause I was just like, all right. Now, mind you, this is back when I still had shorter hair. Like I had just started growing it just specifically for this haircut. So I had just enough for the haircut. This is when maybe I had about half an inch of hair. It's not like how my hair is now. Like I got enough if I wanted to. I could tie it back and have a real giant bush in the back, like a huge giant bushy ponytail, but I don't tie my hair back. I got too much forehead. And so, so I go to the other barber and they do what they can do, but it's a little better, but it's not what I need. And so now I have this haircut that looks like one of those military haircuts that you used to see the people get where it's just the hair at the top and nothing on the sides, nothing in the back. But it's cut too far into the top of my head, so it's not even. And I also kind of have some ears that stick out a little bit. And so, man, I'm already pissed off. I'm coming to work. I get to work. It's just Ava, and Craig hasn't got there yet. And as soon as I walk in, Ava loses it. Now, let me explain something to you. Ava does not have a quiet laugh. She doesn't know how to laugh like real subtle. She has the most dramatic, loud, bring all the attention to her in the room kind of laugh. Like we used to get in so much trouble at work sometimes because we could never like laugh quietly at stuff and then boss lady would get mad at us. And so I happened to find a clip in my phone of her laughing at me for something totally unrelated, but it's exactly the same kind of laugh. So I walk in, right? Already self-cautious. I already know it's gonna be one of them days. I know the teenagers are about to fry me up. The kids gonna have questions, and I didn't even get in the door good. Ava was on the phone when I walked in. She stopped mid-sentence and just fell out.
This is every day, so I need a new job.
Oh, man! Oh!
Go home. I'm going home. I'm out. This is supposed to be the support I get.
WWE! Oh, where was everybody?
I need a new job.
So now I'm sitting here like, man, if that was just her response, God, when these teenagers get here, it is going down. Because the thing is, I've built a rapport with all the kids where, yes, I'm the guy in charge, but I also have a sense of humor, and we joke and we clown, and they know that they can come to me with stuff. And so, you know what, they understand, like, you know, the established relationship is there. And so, man, just understand, as every kid came in there, one by one, they got their digs in. Because at first, with the way that the times were set up, my high school has always got off their buses first. And so I just remember Cedric came in, dang, Mr. Michael, whoa, yo, what happened? Oh my God, man, whoa. And then the rest of them coming in after, hey, okay, that's different. That's not the style for you, Mr. Michael. And I'm over here about F all of y'all, okay? First, you know, I mean, they one by one, and Ava's still losing it. You know, she get to laughing, now the rest of them get to laughing. The middle school bus still gotta come, and they're gonna be 10 times worse. The kids done took out cell phones, they taking pictures, and I'm like, oh my God, y'all are so annoying. They doing Snapchat. Mr. Michael, smile, Mr. Michael, turn to the side. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this for the kids. This is positively impacting their lives. I mean, it was like a roast session for like 45 minutes. I just had to sit there and take it. And I couldn't get mad because honestly, it really was funny. It wasn't funny because it was me. It's like, dang, man. It was almost like karma for this one time back in high school. There was this kid that, you know, I didn't have beef with him, but we weren't really friends, and we were in the same class. And he had been wearing cornrows for like, you know, a few months. And so he had finally chopped all his hair off. And sometimes if you've had braids and stuff, when you cut your hair short, sometimes your head might have a few knots and stuff on it if, you know, the braids have been too tight. And I remember we were in business communication class. It was me, and there was this girl, Leonda, I was talking to. I was mid-sentence, and he walked in, right? And I saw that haircut and them knots, and like just lost it. And man, the way that kid wanted to fight me, like I pissed him off so bad. Like somebody had came to me and was like, oh, I just want you to know, so-and-so said he's gonna fight you after school today. I'm like, oh damn, Lord, now I gotta figure out how to get out of this one. Because listen, I be talking trash, but I don't even be fighting like that. I was like, yeah, he wanted to stump my face in that day because I really lost it. And he had already been like kind of annoyed with me. So that day he walked in and I just fell out laughing and had one of those loud, obnoxious laughs. He was like, okay, I got something for you. We didn't end up fighting. We were good. You know, my scary behind got on the bus and went home. But we're good now. That was like years ago. But man, them kids let me have it. And then the elementary bus still got to come. And it doesn't help. When the elementary bus comes, I'm already standing outside waiting for it to come. And so I literally almost hear the collective reaction of the bus as it's pulling up. Because, you know, they always got the windows down. The kids be yelling out the window and stuff. And you just hear, whoa! Whoa, Mr. Michael! I'm like, oh God, what happened to your hair? I'm like, y'all, that's so annoying. Oh my God, what? Did you do that on purpose? I'm like, oh, okay. So just know, these kids, they know how to fry you up. You love them, but they because they love you, they're gonna fry you up too, and they want you to do better. So, my barber got it from me after that. I was like, you know, you just understand. Never again. And then there was the spelling bees. So the company used to have this massive spelling bee with all of the centers together. And I mean, this was a big ordeal. We do it at the bigger location in DC. And I mean, it would be like sometimes upwards of 200 or 300 kids that were participating. And you had participants in every age range. So you could do the little kids, the middle schoolers, the high schoolers, the older elementary kids. Everybody could participate. And so Ava was really into having the kids read and do things with literature and stuff. So she loved the spelling bee. So I would let her take it on. And so when it was spelling bee time, because we probably have about 2 weeks to prep before the actual event, you know, we kind of restructure and recalibrate all of our programming to center around the spelling bee. And so we would break the kids up into different groups. So I would have a group, she would have a group, Mr. Craig would have a group. If John was there, he had a group. If Lisa was there, she had a group. If I had some teenagers that weren't participating but had some extra free time, I'd have them working with the little kids. And so everybody's practicing these spelling words because, hey, you want the bragging rights. The center that wins the spelling bee would have this big old trophy. We also used to have a math bowl as well, something that John orchestrated, and you'd have that competition that would come down some years later. And so, I mean, the spelling bee was a big deal. And so I remember we finally get to the spelling bee. Now, we got a busload of about 15 kids that are participating. And what the company would do is they didn't didn't want the kids to feel bad if they lost. So for the kids that were in elementary, if they got a word wrong, of course they lose, but there was a table with a bunch of prizes on it where they could get a toy from the table, and then they would come on back and sit down until we got to the very last round. And the same thing would be for the middle schoolers and the high schoolers, but it wouldn't be toys. It might be something else, like, I don't know, a phone case or, a small bag or something like that. So now we're at this spelling bee, and mind you, we have been prepping the kids for 2 weeks. Mr. Craig has done his part. We got a whole chant just for the spelling bee and everything. They gave us t-shirts and stuff to wear to support our different centers. And so the way that this spelling bee was set up, it wasn't like the ones you kind of see in the movies where the kid goes on the stage in front of everybody, spells the word, and then goes back to their seat. Because there were so many kids, they had to break it up into groups. So what would happen is we're in this big giant auditorium, or like this big giant gym, and you can see the kids sitting in sections. So there's one section where there's kindergartners through second graders sitting in a bunch of sections together, and then you have third grade through fifth grade sitting in a section together, then you have sixth grade through eighth grade sitting in a section together, and then of course high school sitting in a section together. The way that this worked is because everybody was going simultaneously at the same time, all the different sections were going at the same time. You would see your kid get up, walk to a table of judges, the judges would give them their word, the kid would spell their word. If they got it right, you see the kid go back to their seat. And so as long as you kept seeing the kids go back to their seat, that meant that, hey, they got their word right, they're still in it. But if they got their word wrong, that's when you'd see them go to the goodie table and get their prize, and then they'd come to the bleachers and sit with everybody else. And so, we're hyped and we're excited because I know we're going to take a few of these medals because my kids can spell. Like, as much as they drive me crazy, like, we don't play no games when it comes to the academics. And so they do really well with, like, reading comprehension and all that stuff. And so Peewee is even in the spelling bee. Okay, Peewee been practicing. Peewee been getting all the words right. I'm like, look, as crazy and as off the chain as he is, Peewee is going to be the winner for the lower elementary category. So Peewee goes, he goes up there with his first word, and then I see him do like a yes sign. I'm like, woo, I'm high-fiving Ava. He got the first one right, y'all. And then we look, Peewee's going to the goodie table. Huh? Wait, what's it going? Wait. Yeah. Peewee comes to us. I said, Peewee, what was the word that you had? Down. Okay, you know how to spell down. Why didn't you spell it right? Oh, I wanted the toy. Wait, so you got out on purpose to get the toy? Yeah, because the best toys are gonna be for the first ones to get out. If I stay in too long, you won't be the good toys. It'd be just the stupid toys left. I want a good toy. Look, I got a Beyblade. Ava, you know what? I think we're about to see this pattern with the rest of these kids. And just like I predicted, listen, maybe 7/8 of our children, that's a random number, I only had 15 that came, but 7/8 of the children purposely got out early so that they could go to the goodie table and get a toy. And we only had about 2 kids that actually tried. I was like, you know what? Y'all done had me come all the way out here. And if you know anything about the DMV, okay, coming down Route 1 and trying to get on 295 to come into Northeast DC during rush hour is a 2-hour process on a Friday. I'm like, y'all done had us sit in traffic and wait till we get back to the center. Okay, I'm done. The only saving grace was one of our kids ended up getting first place for her grade. It was Stacy. If you remember, Stacy was the girl from Summer Camp 2012 where we went on the nature hike, and she found out that there was a snake inside of the visitor center, inside of a cage. Mind you, we're outside, and she had a whole meltdown, and Ava had to carry her on her back. And mind you, it wasn't even a snake that was alive. It was a snake that was on display. Like, when they mummify the bodies and put them in some kind of display case. Oh, she had a meltdown. But anyway, she had won for her respective age category. At least we taken one trophy back to the center, because Stacy was the saving grace. Because all of our kids was out here getting everything wrong on purpose. Antoine got his wrong on purpose. Yeah. And then they got the nerve. Mind you, the other kids are still competing. All of my kids who done got out on purpose, they done opened their toys. They're having an entire just play down session on the bleachers, and loud. One kid is flying his car in there. I said, y'all got some nerve. Y'all got some nerve up in here. But to me, it was funny. I was like, it shows you that kids are very clever. Kids are very smart. We don't give them enough credit. So then there's this one day, and we are all in another staff meeting. It's me, it's Ava, it's Mr. Craig, it's TT from the basement location, it's Daniel from the basement location, Mr. John. There's a few additional people that have joined the basement location staff. I'm gonna be honest, as we continue through this podcast, because the basement location had so many people come and go, I don't even have names for everybody. So there's gonna be some folks that we just don't even mention because there was too many of them that came in and out. And then anyway, so we're in this meeting, and boss lady's like, I have a wonderful opportunity for our kids. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Because every time she got an opportunity, it's always something crazy, right? We have partnered with a nearby charity, and we are going to be having a teen career week. And I was like, actually, I like that idea. Okay, now we're finally doing something that makes some sense around here. Okay, yes, tell us all about the Teen Career Week. And she was like, we're going to go to various businesses, and the teens will get an opportunity to meet the directors and the staff and learn all about the career field that exists. I said, okay, great. So what are the places we're going to be going to? Everest College. God damn. Everest College again. Like, understand, Everest College was one of our partners, and I just was not a fan because we always used them for everything. And especially when it came to doing college tours, like I said, the other centers, they were going to Morgan State, they were going to Bowie State, they're going to Howard, they're going up to Pennsylvania and looking at schools. You know, they're going down further into Virginia, they're looking at Norfolk State, they're looking at Old Dominion, they're looking at Hampton, they're going to all these different places and looking at different schools in Virginia Tech and George Mason and James Madison and William and Mary. And then here go my kids, Everest College, the for-profit scam school, right? And so I'm like, dang, boss lady, we can't go nowhere else. How come every time we got to do something, it got to be Everest College? I mean, when you look, we're right smack in the nation's capital. I'm like, you got everything that's right here. I mean, BET is down the street if the kids want to go into media. You got the Smithsonian Museum system where if kids want to be curators and all the stuff like that. There's tons of real estate companies around here, and there's just all these different places. Why do we keep using Everest? And she's like, Michael, Everest College is one of our partners. We are in collaboration with them. They are helping to pay your salary. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the card we're gonna pull now. Okay, well, can we mix it up a little bit? Because now I got one kid thinking they're going to med school because they're going to Everest. Okay, can we do better? So we end up having this teen career week, and so it's my teenagers, it's the teenagers from the basement location, it's the teenagers from this charity group, and so we go to Everest College, and then we also go to the Ritz-Carlton at Tyson's Corner, which I thought was a great choice because now you're entering and showing the teenagers the world of hospitality and how many layers there are to it. And that was a cool trip because the Ritz-Carlton has everything and all these different back hallways and corridors that you don't even know exist. And that's a lot of these really big hotels. Like, we see the parts that we go to as far as where we stay and the restaurants and the bars that the hotels have, but I mean, there's like another whole world when it comes to the people that work there because there's these back corridors and back hallways and basement floors and all kind of things happening. And so the guy was showing us just what happens, and even I think they had like a specifically like a celebrity liaison kind of person where the guy was telling me, yeah, when Beyonce was on her last tour, she stayed at this suite right here, and these are the things that we did for her, and in order for her to be able to get through the hotel without being spotted, you know, she'd come through these back corridors and these secret hallways. Like, all of that kind of stuff was cool. So we did that. We went to some other business I ain't never heard of. It was something real dry, something real boring, something real nursing home-ish, right? The only cool thing was that their roof was an ecosystem. Like, it was one of those ceilings or the roofs that have the grass on it and the water filters out, and that was cool. But I don't even know what that business was. To me, it seemed like some kind of company that does contracting or something with a paper business, and I think this was just one of Boss Lady's friends, and she just had a favor real quick because that was the most boring day out of all of them. And then I think the last 2 days, we were actually going to be on site at the basement location and do some team building activities and some other things like that, which I was like, okay, I guess. Now, I do want to say this. With the teens that were from the charity group, it definitely opened, which I think for my teens, it opened their eyes to the fact that there is another world outside of the world we all live in, because these were all teens that had been displaced because of world affairs, right? And so the majority of these teens were from the Middle East, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, everything in that region of the world. And so these were all teenagers that had been toddlers around the time that 9/11 happened, and now they're living in a post 9/11 world. And so a lot of teenagers, you know, they had watched their neighborhoods get bombed, or, you know, just so much going on in the world in regard to the wars and everything that's just been happening in the last 30 plus years. And so they had a very different experience from a lot of the teens in our company. Like, our teens have their struggles and their setbacks, but one of the privileges that they've had is they didn't have to worry about, you know, their homes being blown up or anything like that all the time. And so it was a great way for the teens to actively engage and connect and just learn about other people's experiences and vice versa. And I mean, the kids from the charity group were so intrigued by our teens, and I mean, it was like everybody clicked, everything was good, there wasn't no bad blood. I said, thank you, Lord, because I didn't know how this was gonna go. And right, and so now here's where things get crazy. we had been assigned to pretty much be the ones to orchestrate the team building activities for the last 2 days, and this was going to be at the basement location. Now, Daniel was supposed to be the person who would cover the very last day on Friday. Like, me and Ava would do that Thursday, and so we had already got through Thursday. I did my activity and everything. It was great. We had a good time. We laughed, and we moved right along into the next day. And so the next day was Daniel's day. And so we start this program, and mind you, this is about 60 teenagers, right? So Daniel's doing his program, everything is all fine and dandy. We go to lunch, and it's time for Daniel to come back and do the next portion that he's gonna do with this activity with all the groups, right? And lunch is still going. And at this point, it's really been about an hour and 10 minutes, and lunch was only supposed to be about 45. And so I'm like, something is not right here, and I haven't seen Daniel in a minute. So I just start walking around, because I'm like, maybe something isn't right, or I don't know, maybe they're just prepping for the next activity, because at this point, Daniel's on deck. It's time for him to do his part. And so I'm walking. I go by Boss Lady's office, because I didn't see Daniel in his office, and Boss Lady's door is closed and locked. I'm like, locked, but she's in there. I can hear her yelling, and, have you lost your mind? Have you lost your mind? I said, oh, wait a minute, something's going down. So I figured that Daniel was in the office getting cussed out. And so I'm like, okay, well, we're just gonna ride this out. So I start texting Ava like, yo, something's going on up in here. And she texts me, and she's like, hey, come meet me by the side of the hallway. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. And so I find her on another side of the hallway, because mind you, the basement location got all these turns and curves, and there's all kind of places to hide in there. And she's like, you will not believe what has just happened. And I was like, what? Daniel just left. Left what? To go get more food? No, he left. He took a job at another center. What center? Well, he took a job at one of the centers in DC, and he's actually starting right now. So he left, and he's over there right now. And he took TT with him. What, he took TT? Now, if you remember, TT also worked at the basement location. I like TT. She was funny to me because she laughed at everything I said. I always wanted her to just come and work at our center. But yes, Daniel left, took a new job at another center, and brought TT with him as well. So he did a 2-for-1 special and bounced. But the problem is, he bounced during the middle of a program. And I'm like, well, we still have 4 hours on this whole program that we're doing, and this is supposed to be Daniel's part, so what are we supposed to do? I don't know, but okay. And then next thing you know, Boss Lady's calling, Michael! I'm like, okay, so I'm running over there. Yeah, I'm coming. I need you to work your magic. Huh? I need you to work your magic. And work my magic? What? There's a lot of things happening. Lots of big changes. I mean, she was so pissed she couldn't even get her words out. Big changes. All right, we need to just do something. Okay, Lord. Okay, why is it that whenever something falls apart, I gotta fix it, right? I will be back. And so next thing you know, Boss Lady gets in her car and then she pulls off. I'm like, what's she gonna go over there and go drag him back over here? And so now it's just me, it's Ava, it's Mr. John. Craig has already left for the day because he was still part-time at the time, so he didn't have to stay for the full day. And I think there was one other staff member, but now we're in a center with 60 kids. The directors of the center, both the branch director and the program director, are nowhere to be found, and they also took TT with them. And so it's like, what do we do here? And I'm going to actually stop right there, and we will pick this up on the next episode. See you then.